Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Rod.
Good morning, Peter. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic considering it is Friday, one more day of work, and then I'm on the weekend enjoying my family and hopefully the outdoors. Cause it is winter now. We got tons of snow, but the temperature this week is actually beautiful. It's like -5 Celsius, so it's almost like short weathers.
Yeah, I'm a big winter fan. I'm from Ohio, so I'm a big winter fan. The unfortunate thing is most people that live in Ohio, they complain about snow, even though we don't really get as much as I would absolutely love. But what does happen, and then I tell people, don't complain about the snow because it's Ohio. It's going to change, and it's going to change drastically. I saw a weather report this morning. We're expecting like severe thunderstorms and possibly tornadoes next week already.
Oh God.
I know.
Go from snow to tornadoes.
It'd be nice if we had a snow tornado. I would appreciate that.
We call that a blizzard.
Well, you call it a blizzard. I call it fun.
Okay. Rod, you are now part of the IT Hopstock team. How's that?
I am. So I'm just sort of kind of getting settled in, but I have to say that I believe I'm absolutely going to love it for a couple reasons. First, being a security person, we had a very small security team up until recently. So when I first joined in this role at Microsoft, I was the only person. That's how small our team was. Even though across the board at Microsoft, we've invested so heavily in security. Yeah, I was that person. Then
Well, you were that person in DevRel, but let's not kid our audience. The amount of personnel that actually work on security product is huge.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's where that real investment comes from. It wasn't just me. I wasn't the only investment. Yeah, we've had what was the last number I heard last time? I forget, 10 billion or something like that. When I started in security at Microsoft about 2.5 years ago, just as an example of how much we have grown, I'm hyper focused on things like cybersecurity, Microsoft Sentinel, Defender for Cloud, things like that.
Yep.
By the end of the first year working on Microsoft Sentinel at Microsoft, we had like 9,000 so customers using Microsoft Sentinel. The latest financial report, I don't know if anybody caught that. I did, obviously. But we now have over 15,000 active Microsoft Sentinel customers. And that to me is absolutely amazing. That's just evidence that our security investments are absolutely paying off.
Yep. Well, speaking of security investments, I think we do have some news about security that we're going to get to in a little bit.
Yeah.
So you are on our team now, reporting to our glorious leader, Rick, and I'm saying that because he might be in the chat. And you have a partner. I always pronounce it Joy Lynn, but it is.
Mm-hmm.
Is it Joy Lynn?
It is Joy Lynn. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I heard somebody pronounce it differently in a meeting this week, and I'm like, I'm so self-conscious on the way I always mispronounce names.
Yeah.
And I apologize profusely. But anyway.
Yeah, that can be embarrassing sometimes. Yep, absolutely.
So we've had a few weeks with lots of new people, Rod and Joylyn and Amy, which is in the chat room right now. And she's correcting me, saying it's Jolene, like the song. Okay, thank you, Amy.
Huh? Oh my goodness. So
we've been told, Rod. We've been told.
Jolene. I thought that was like a Dolly Parton song.
It is actually. It's somebody else's song, but I do believe Dolly Parton covered it. Anyway, how about we jump into the news?
We could do that.
We could do that. Let me start this week with the Bastion Server. So
Ooh. You have to be careful with that name too, by the way.
yes, it's not the Bastard Server, it's the
Right.
Bastion Server. There we go. We can see properly. We now support, because anybody who's used this knows that it's a fantastic product to help secure your environment, because we all need to like remote into our VMs and kind of do some management and some installation. Not 100% of everything can always be automated. Every once in a while you have to go in there and maybe just get a log file from it or upload a config file to a VM. There's all kinds of different things. And we also know that exposing RDP, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rod, but exposing RDP to the internet is a bad thing, correct?
That is a hugely bad thing. In fact, you can go as far as to say that might, if someone ever found out, it might get you fired. And here's a good anecdote. So I have, I told people that I was going to be on here, and I would say Sentinel a lot just to appease them. So here's another Microsoft Sentinel story.
Hashtag not sponsored.
Yeah, exactly. So I have my own Microsoft Sentinel environment, as you can imagine. One of the things I do with that is I do demos for customers. I use it to investigate, do my own investigations and things like that. I have Defender for Cloud tied into Microsoft Sentinel. Defender for Cloud is very good at identifying, compliance issues, policy issues, and things like that. I will manually turn off just-in-time JIT from my VMs periodically, because I know that just as soon as I do that, there's going to be some bot somewhere in the world sitting there waiting to find an open RDP or UDP port, and I start getting incidents created like immediately. I'll get 10 within the first 10, 15 seconds that I turn JIT off.
Oh, I know
it is absolutely that important. And what this does, this Bastion, was amazing. You don't have to think about it, right? It automatically encrypts that stream. And to me, that from a security perspective, that is absolutely huge when a customer doesn't have to think about, doesn't have to encrypt those ports, or at least protect those ports automatically. They can do crazy, nefarious, silly things, and this will fix it for them.
Yeah, but up to now, Bastion was allowing you to basically RDP or remote desktop into either a Linux or a Windows machine through the browser. So you'd have your desktop or your RDP session inside of a browser session. But it made some activities very cumbersome, such as uploading and downloading files, which we have to do on a regular basis. If you're getting a log file, you're uploading some stuff. Now with the Bastion host, what it allows you to do is create a tunnel from your machine, whether it's Linux or Windows, and to the Bastion, and then through that connect to your VM and actually upload and download files directly from your native client. So directly from Windows or directly from Linux, without having to go through the browser. So it's going to simplify a lot of things. And of course, this is a public preview, so it's going to change. Like right now, for over SSH on Linux, you can only upload or download. They're one of the two. The other one's not supported right now. Upload, I think. Download's not supported right now, but it's they're working on it. This is a preview, so by the time it goes to general availability, it'll be fixed. But I'm just super stoked about the direction that it's heading, and the amount of value that just little changes like that can give to our audience. Need to upload a new config file, just run the script, make the connection. You don't even have to go to the portal once it's created, and then you upload the file, and then you're done.
Well, this is another one of those, and this is a small kind of little nuance update some people may consider, but this is still part of that security investment, right? We're trying our best to make security just something you don't have to think about for our products, and absolutely it should be. We can go back to the early days of trustworthy computing, and 20 years later, we're still kind of working on it. But I think this is absolutely all part of that, and the investment over the past few years has really signifies that. So,
yeah, no, you're right. So let's jump on to the second item, which is
Yeah.
yours, which is AKS clusters, I believe.
Well, and not just AKS clusters, but this is in private preview or just released into private preview. I absolutely love our private preview programs. We have done so much good with these things in creating services, features, those nuanced features I was talking about for our customers based on customer request and feedback. As we're getting customers involved in these private previews, they're giving us that feedback. The products are changing for the
Yep.
better because
Yep.
of those customer recommendations. This is one of those, right? In private preview, volume backup, persistent volume backup of the AKS clusters is now available, right? So this allows this backup, and we'll talk a little bit. I think we're going to talk about some other types of backups here shortly and recovery. But this allows not just recovery, but also recovery of one or more persistent volume backups. So they can take advantage of this private preview. And it's not just delegated to the same cluster anymore. You can also send it to a different cluster, right? Let's restore this somewhere else. We could even use that to make comparisons and things like that, which a lot of customers
Or development environment where you want to test something because you're getting this recurring problem in production. And of course, your dev and your production environment are not always the same. So you can back up your production, restore it into dev environment, and then run through your scenarios.
Yep.
That makes things a little easier. I'm just glad that because you look at some of the workloads in the cloud, and I've talked to some developers, and there's a misconception sometimes that, well, if I've got enough, if my application is architected in such a way that I've got enough redundancy that I don't need a backup. um, I'm an old school
Yeah.
IT and ops guy. Anything that hits production has got to have a backup, a restore, and a recovery plan attached to it. So if it is production and it is in the business depends on it, you got to be able to back it up somehow, even if it's just snapshots every hour or something like that for like a container. Because I understand that some containers, there's no, like if it crashes, it just flushes it and then creates a new one because there's nothing stateful in it. It's a stateless, in a lot of cases, a stateless operation. So it doesn't really matter. But in the case of when you've got a stateless or an application running in a container on AKS or on ACI, and you're tying it to persistent storage, then that's the key word here is persistent, and you need to be able to save it somehow. So I'm glad to see that Azure Backup and Azure Kubernetes services are now realizing and making it available. The fact that you can actually back up your nodes and eventually back up entire AKS clusters.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to kind of re-highlight again that importance of that private preview program, any active customer can take advantage of something like this, right? So you show on that page there down at the bottom, there's a link, fill this form out. If you want to participate in this, and you absolutely do.
And it's not a very intrusive form. Are you native? If Azure, would you use it? Yes. Are you willing to participate in the program? Yes. Submit. Done. So we're not collecting any info here.
Yeah, we try again. It's like the security piece. We're trying to make it as easy as possible to interact with Microsoft and Microsoft services and people and products and everything. Our engineering teams. I think, to me, coming from a long history in my profession as a community person, that just warms my heart to see how well we're doing in that area.
Yep. All right, so let's jump on to our next news item. Our next news item is about Azure Site Recovery, and I've been a big fan of Azure Site Recovery, like since the very beginning. Because at first, before we had Azure Migrate, I actually used Azure Site Recovery with some customers to migrate their workloads, because a migration is basically a site recovery without a restore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you duplicate or replicate your workloads, and then you just don't fail it over. You just shut down the original. So I've been a big fan of that, and I've presented on that, like even back into, is it 2014, for Ignite Australia, or TechEd Australia. I can't even remember whether it was TechEd or Ignite at that point. But I'm really impressed with the way they every month or every other month they come up with their roll up updates. They keep improving the software. They keep improving the way the replication is done. This month for their January 2022, they've added a whole bunch of different OS, like Linux OSs, to the support. They've fixed some issues with the Windows 2022, and you would think it's Windows, it just works, but they've had some with the agent, the mobility agent, as they call it, that sits on your machine that replicates the data. Now they've added all of those new OS and fixed 2022, and that's great. But they've also listened to the community, people that are using it, and made some changes in the restrictions or configurations that they were. So in terms of like the retention points are now available for up to 15 days. Is if you're in the past, they were the retention points were only available for just a few days, and it wasn't quite enough. We heard the feedback through the feedback loop, but also through us advocates. And the product group has made that change. So you now can have your retention points that will last up to 15 days. Your replication can be enabled on a virtual machine via Azure policy. So this is huge for me. So if you have a tenant or a resource group that is identified by tag or by however you want to identify it as a production workload, of whether or not it needs to be. So you can use tag to identify that this needs to be replicated, this needs to be protected, this doesn't have to be. So now by policy, when you deploy something and with those tags, or that's covered by that policy, will automatically turn on replication for those VMs. So you don't have to worry about after the fact having to go back, or because if it's done by human, at some point somebody's going to drop the ball and the machine is not going to be replicated.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I agree. That's absolutely huge. That's a big area that I'm a fan of, right? Because a lot of our other services within Azure, we're starting to utilize Azure policy a lot more. This is an area I think customers really, really need some education on. Azure policy is absolutely important, but I just want to highlight there is a caveat. Just like group policies, where a group policy can negate a group policy, you have to be very careful because Azure policies can do the same thing. And what I would recommend, being a data science security type Azure Microsoft Sentinel person, alert on those log files when an Azure policy doesn't work the way that it's supposed to, because you can get kicked right in the butt because of something like that.
Oh, yeah, policies are very, very, very powerful, but as you mentioned, very, very dangerous. I had a policy on the system with a customer that would turn off certain services because they were being replaced by third party.
Yeah.
So they would turn off the native, and eventually they replaced the third party with native support for what they were using, but they forgot that somewhere in their policy they had a bit that would turn it off. So they would turn it on, they would work for 40 minutes, and then it would turn off. And they couldn't figure out where it was. So policies are very, very powerful.
So how's that phrase go? With great power comes great responsibility. So yeah, absolutely. Learn it.
But I'm going to allow that, but I'm not gonna die on the sidewalk like Peter's uncle.
Well, let's hope not.
Great responsibility. Okay.
Yeah.
So Azure Site Recovery update, lots of updates and lots of bug fixes as well. That's always a good thing that we keep track of our bug fix. And the next item in our listing today
Yeah.
is Azure Defender for Identity. What's that about?
Now, this is great. So, part of that security investment that I was talking about earlier, not just dollars, but also engineering and things like that, we have been at Microsoft, and I know customers, I've talked to customers, they know that we've been working extremely hard to accomplish this. Take all of our security platforms, all our Defender stuff, MCAS, which is now named Microsoft Defender for Apps, all of those different Defender branded services and products into a central console, security.microsoft.com, right?
Okay.
Um, we do have some lingering services that have just, for whatever reason, have taken a little bit of extra time to get there. I think MCAS is still, there's some pieces of that as well, but Defender for Identity, this week, all of the features that you could get from that original Defender for Identity console, they are now all consolidated at security.microsoft.com. This includes things like the full onboarding administration experience, the incidents that get created, they have been consolidated with the advanced hunting in the M365 Defender console, which is huge. A lot of our customers use that to do hunting, looking for nefarious things within the data, looking for bad user habits. The thing that really I think is awesome about this is kind of, we've been waiting for this from a Microsoft Sentinel perspective. We have this consolidated Defender connector. All of our Defender branded services, we have this connector we've kind of been waiting on. There's still, again, some lingering things we haven't turned on yet. They're still in private preview. This is one of those. So with this barrier out of the way, with this API and all this stuff in the security.microsoft.com, I'm positive that we'll see that Defender for Identity piece of that connector enabled very shortly. Toot sweet. I think that's still a word. So yeah.
Is there also a an add-on or an amalgamation of search capabilities now?
So within the console, yeah, security.microsoft.com, the search capability is there for the features, but also for searching through, and I assume this is what you're talking about, searching through the data, right?
Yeah.
So all of those, so if you go to advanced hunting in this security.microsoft.com, if you go to advanced hunting and search over on the left-hand side, you're going to see all of the tables that are associated now with this centralized console. All the identity tables, all of our Defender for Endpoint tables, all the device tables and things like that, they are all there. So yeah, you can search across all of them. Obviously, you need to know KQL because you can't just, if you use a search command, search with your string, it's going to search all tables at once. But if you want to tie tables together, you have to use your union and your joins. I have a series about that. Thanks for
shameless plug.
Yeah.
Hashtag
Must learn KQL series. It's specific to security stuff right now, but if you go to aka.ms/must learn KQL, takes you from day one, from scratch with KQL and all the way through so that you'll be able to do things like joins and unions within the advanced console here. So yeah, appreciate that.
Andrew is a big fan, obviously.
Andrew, he forgot the must in front of learn KQL there, so I'll have to hit him up later.
All right, so we now have going into our last item of the day. Or was that our last item of the day?
Well, that was, unless
it was.
Yeah. There's more, but
there's more. I did wanted to touch on something because we have 5 minutes left. You have a podcast of sort that you do on a regular basis in terms of security. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, every Wednesday night at 5 p.m. Eastern, we stream live video on Twitch. It's the Microsoft Security Insights podcast. We have product managers. We have this you're showing here last week, this past Wednesday, we had the authors, Microsoft folks, that have created a new SC200 exam guide, right? Had them on talking about that, talking about SC200, how to pass, and all that good kind of stuff. It was an amazing conversation. But we do this every Wednesday night, 5 p.m. on Twitch. And then the replay, obviously, as just the audio podcast, is available anywhere you can find podcasts, anywhere you listen to your podcast. But it's been an
or on
amazing
MicrosoftSecurityInsights.com.
Yep. It's been an amazing thing. I should note, and I just want to get people energized and excited about this. We are planning our own very first all-day streaming podcast event coming up in the very near future. We're planning is underway right now. So it's literally just the podcast just all day long with people and guests shuffled in and out. It's going to be pretty cool.
We used to call that a conference.
Yeah, now it's all virtual. Well, yeah. One of these days, maybe we can talk about in-person conferences. Maybe. We'll see.
Yes. I really hope so. And to close out the day, we only got a couple minutes. Let's look at our Azure or Microsoft Learn module of the week. And considering, when you and I talked about this yesterday, considering how important Azure Bastion host can be to your security, we decided that using the Learn module to connect your virtual machine through Azure Portal using Azure Bastion would be a great start. So if you've never used it, if you are still doing jump boxes where you have to manage the box that you use to manage other boxes, you got to stop that. Start looking into Bastion Server. Of course, there are some differences, like you can't use the full RDP client to connect to the Bastion host, but it does close up a lot of those security holes that Rod is so concerned with.
Absolutely. I'm going to go do this one. That was good.
I've actually done this one before, but I think I want to do it again to see if there's anything that has changed, mostly based on some of the improvements into the products that they have.
Yeah.
Because I know that now when you deploy a Bastion host, you can actually pick whether or not you're going to allow native client support or not. If you've got an existing one, you have to go and reconfigure it to enable native client support.
Yeah.
But the basis and the basics of what you learn in this Learn module are very, very important.
And again, it is Bastion. So
what did I say?
No. I'm just reiterating.
Oh, okay. I thought I messed up with a name again.
No, sorry, didn't mean to scare you.
Not that it would be unusual. I do that all the time, but
it's just not a product naming schema that we generally use. So,
Rod, you have no idea how many times in my head I say before you and I meet, either in a meeting or online like this, it's Rod, not Rob. It's Rod, not Rob.
I've learned over the years just to answer to anything. Hey usually works. So that's
I know, but it's a sign. I think it's a sign of respect when you try, at the very least, try your best to pronounce the person's name the way it's meant to be.
Yeah, I have to apologize to Jolene later.
Or Amy. Actually, I apologize to Amy. Apparently, when I introduced her a couple weeks ago,
Ami.
I messed up her name.
It's Ami.
It's Ami?
I think so.
It's Ami. You think so? Hey, all right. So thank you very much, Rod, for spending time with us to go over the news item in Azure this week.
Appreciate it. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for all those that tuned in, waiting for me to flub up some crazy thing. So appreciate it.
Yep. And next week, I am away. I will be somewhere in the wilderness on the back of a snowmobile in northern Quebec, having some fun and trying to survive a long trip in the wilderness. But Jay will cover the host capabilities, and I think we're going to have a special co-host. So make sure to join them. And with that being said, thanks, Rod. Thanks, everyone. And have a wonderful weekend. Cheers.